guys, it's Haley and welcome to another bookish video. Today we are getting into some book recommendations you've probably never heard of. These books are just not your average thriller rec, okay? These are not the overly hyped books that we're trying to see if they're actually worth it. These are not the hyped releases that are going to be in every reading vlog ever. These are the more backlist, more niche thriller and horror books that I feel like don't get the attention they deserve, or I've literally never heard another booktuber talk about ever, and I think these are all worth a read, maybe over some of the overly hyped books if we're being honest. I want to make this a series of recommendations that you guys have probably never heard of. I want to do a romance version, I want to do a horror version for spooky season. This is kind of my like Haley's faves version of it, the greatest hits of thriller and horror books that I love to read that nobody ever talks about. But before we get into the book recommendations, I do want to thank the sponsor of today's video, which is Aura. If you have never heard of Aura before, they basically do all kinds of protecting you on the internet. If you didn't know, hi, the internet that you're on, it's a very dangerous place. I think we all experienced that with the TikTok ban of it all. Did that freak anyone else out? Yeah, I'm terrified. But beyond that, there are these dudes called data brokers, and they will literally take all of your personal information that's available on the internet and sell it. And this is completely legal. It literally blows my mind. These massive companies that don't want to pay for good enough security are getting hacked every single day. And your personal information is being sold on the dark web. I'm talking spammers, I'm talking scammers, I'm talking identity thieves. All of them can get your information and target you. Nobody's gonna protect you from this. The government definitely isn't. We saw everything that happened with TikTok. God, please, I can't. It is up to us to protect ourselves, and we can thanks to Aura. Aura does all of the hard work for you. When I used Aura, they identified all the data brokers that were selling my information and submitted opt-out requests on my behalf. It has led to so much less spam. Aura also continuously monitors the dark web and will alert you if your information becomes available there. They also provide you with up to $5 million of identity theft insurance in case anything is to happen to you. And they have a VPN with over 100 locations just to top it all off and give you extra security. So if you want to keep yourself safe on this wild, weird internet that you are currently on, go down below and check out my link. You can get a free 14-day trial of Aura, and that will be enough time to figure out if your data has been exposed. I will put my link down below in the description box. Thank you so much to Aura for sponsoring this video, and now let's go ahead and get into the book recs. The first book I want to talk about is, I think, the only horror book. Maybe I have one other that's like edging on horror, but this is going to be the most horror-ish rec on this list. So if you're not a horror reader, you can skip right over this and just get into the thrillers. But I did want to mention this one because if you like dark, intense thrillers that seek to scar you, this book reads exactly like that. If you like The Butterfly Garden by Dot Hutchinson or Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter, one of my favorite books of all time, I feel like both of those are fairly hyped. If you want something similar that no one is talking about, you've got to try Living Dead Girl by Elizabeth Scott. It's really short, it's so fast-paced, but this one is not easy to read. It goes by quickly, but it is heart-wrenching. You are following the story of a young girl who has been kidnapped, and we are just rooting for her to escape the entire book. We see what happens with this girl's abduction and how that has progressed over 5 years of her living with this psycho man. And now the time has come where an opportunity presents for escape. Will she do it? Does she have Stockholm Syndrome? It is classic kidnapping thriller setup. It is dark, it is intense, and it is so good. I was on the edge of my seat and in emotional turmoil the entirety of reading this book. I don't know why more people don't talk about it because it is incredible. This should be right up there with dark thriller recs books, like Pretty Girls, like S.A. Cosby books, if you like some dark shit like that, you are going to love Living Dead Girl. Next up, let's get into something that feels like a classic thriller. If you like a book that reads like The Woman in Cabin 10 or The Girl on the Train, I feel like those are two of the most classic, like overhyped airport thrillers, but you want something that's actually really good, because I didn't super love either of those books. Instead, I would recommend you The Replacement Wife by Darby Kane. This one I loved so much. We are following a woman who could just be crazy. You know, she could just be paranoid, but she's identified a pattern with her brother-in-law, okay? Every single one of his partners that he's ever had, girlfriend, fiance, now wife, has gone missing mysteriously. And she's like, okay, jig's up. My brother-in-law is a murderer, but no one around her believes her, so she has to figure it out herself. She has to prove it not only to the police, but to herself, because she is being convinced by the people around her that she's going crazy. If the gaslighting women trope in a thriller book doesn't jive with you, you probably want to avoid this. But for me, that anger that I feel when that happens in a thriller is so cathartic. I just feel like I want to believe her so bad and smash every man in the face who's trying to tell her otherwise. That is the feeling I got in this book. It's also so twisty at the end. It's not exactly what we expect, and I had such a good time with it. It's just classic, like, gaslighting women, trying to find a murderer, paranoia, rich people drama, unreliable narrator. If all of those buzzwords sound like a thriller that you would enjoy, you have got to pick up The Replacement Wife. I don't know why nobody talks about it, because it reads like a classic thriller to me. Next up, we have one of my absolute faves. Oh my god, I love this book so much. Y'all know I am a big fan of Lisa Jewell, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that nobody talks about Lisa Jewell books. I feel like a lot of her thrillers are a little overhyped, or at least widely known and worth the hype, but I'm talking about her backlist, the books that nobody mentions. One of my favorites from her backlist is The Truth About Melody Brown by Lisa Jewell, clearly. We are following this woman who goes to a hypnotist, and all of a sudden she starts to uncover these buried memories, hidden fragments of her life that suddenly start to make things make a lot more sense. She lost all of her memories during a traumatic event when she was 9 years old and her house burned down, but now she is putting together the pieces and trying to figure out what actually happened, not only in the fire, but in the early years of her life. Every piece that she puts together, though, seems to unlock a new mystery, and every other chapter, it's like there's new mysteries to solve, there's new secrets and lies being exposed. I literally read this in one sitting because I could not put it down. It's one of the most riveting stories in a thriller. Like, sometimes a thriller is just like the ride of it all, which I love that, but this is like storytelling, I hope that makes sense, crafts itself into this wonderfully told story with such fluency, such great reveals all the way through. It has heart to it. It's not just a throwaway thriller. This was such an easy 5-star. I cannot believe I've literally never heard anyone recommend this in a booktube video. I'm gonna do it now because y'all need to read this. The Truth About Melody Brown. Go get it now. Next up, let's talk about a British thriller, and that is The Baby Shower by S.E. Lines. This was another 5-star thriller for me that I feel like I haven't heard anyone else talk about. We are following all of these women. They're mostly rich and they're mostly a little bit catty. So we get some good, like, toxic female friendship. We get some good rich people drama in there. But all of these women are in different kind of phases of their life and have different relationships with the idea of motherhood. Some of them have kids, one of them is currently pregnant, and one of them is struggling with fertility. It's like this whole group of women, and they all have different experiences with their bodies, with the idea of being a mother, with children, etc. And the whole thriller comes to a head when someone dies at a baby shower filled with hoity-toity women, and we have to figure out who dies, who kills them, what the whole dynamic is. It's thrilling. It is twisty, of course. Honestly, the twist in this book really caught me off guard. I loved it so much. But beyond that, this was a thriller that I was annotating and highlighting. I read it on my Kindle and I could not stop highlighting. Like, there were so many wonderful insights about feminism, motherhood, what it's like to be in a different phase with the idea of wanting to be a mother or not. It just had some really poignant things to say, along with being a really fun thrill ride. What's not to love about it? The baby shower. Go read it. So good. I feel like I'm being very commanding in this video, but it's because I want y'all to know how good these books are. I don't have the hype on my side. I don't have anyone else telling y'all to read these, so I'm begging you. Please listen. Please read these books. They're so underrated and so good. Next up, let's get into a recent read of mine, and that is The Night of the Storm by Nishita Parekh. And this is your classic murder mystery, okay? If you like an isolated locked door mystery where there's a group of people all stuck in a place and people start dying one by one and you have to identify the murderer, this is that, but with a couple modern twists on it that make it super juicy and fun. This actually takes place during Hurricane Harvey. I thought the representation for Houston during the time of Harvey, because if you don't know, I'm from Houston. I grew up there. I thought the rep was really accurate. It's clear Nishita either lives in Houston or has family there. She knows what went down during Harvey. Basically, this family just chooses not to evacuate. So they're stuck in this house during a devastating hurricane. It is isolated. It is crazy weather outside. They're just trying to survive. But beyond that, someone in the family has gotten murderous and is picking the rest of them off. As we're following them trying to survive the hurricane, we're also uncovering all of the secrets and lies of the family that may be motive for murder. This one was so entertaining all the way through. The atmosphere was perfect to read while it was raining outside. I felt all the vibes. It was a very classic murder mystery with a twist. Loved it. All right, should we put a shrimp on the barbie and get Australian? I'm so sorry, that was literally the worst thing I've ever done. I really do apologize for that. That was crazy. I did that because I want to get into some Australian thriller recs, okay? I'm getting into Australian thrillers. Y'all know that I love my British thrillers, but I'm branching out into Australian authors as well now because I'm running out of thrillers to read, you guys. It's really becoming a problem. First up, I want to talk about Nicole Trope. I am working my way through her backlist right now, and this has been a favorite of mine as I'm getting through. This is The Truth About the Accident by Nicole Trope. It's a very rich people drama, very domestic thriller core. If you like that, you're gonna love this. It is straight up rich people drama, scandal, lies, what's going on in this family that leads to disaster. I feel like I would relate Nicole Trope to Robin Harding. So just to like give you a touch point, if you read mostly US thriller authors, if you like Robin Harding, you're probably gonna like Nicole Trope. This was another one that I read in one sitting. It's so bingeable, so fast-paced, so twisty. We're following the wife of a man who gets into an accident, and we wonder, because she hates his guts, did she have something to do with it? Was this a random accident? Why is she so worried about the police asking questions and possibly finding the person who caused the accident and hurt her husband? What did that deleted text message say? Etc, etc. There are many questions. You'll get the answers and you will have a fun time doing it. Highly recommend this thriller. And the other Australian rec that I have for you is a recent 5-star read and one of my favorite thrillers that I've read this year, and that is Kill Yours, Kill Mine by Catherine Kavasic. Oh my god, this is the good for her moment. We are following this grief counselor who is a very, very unethical therapist, okay? She gets together a group of women under the guise of group grief therapy. all of these women have had their sisters be killed by their romantic partners. And so she's like, okay, we're just gonna like meet and process our grief since we've all gone through this similar trauma. But really, it's a group of 6 women who get together and say, okay, so I'm gonna kill your perpetrator that killed your sister, and you're gonna kill mine, and she's gonna kill hers, and she's gonna kill hers. And they assign each other the murders of these horrible men that killed their sisters. And we watch it all play out. We watch it go off the rails. We see the twists. Oh my God, this one keeps you on the edge of your seat. I will say it is quite intense. Look up trigger warnings. This one did catch me off guard. I have someone very close to me who went through a domestic violence situation, and it was really, really accurate representation in this book, and it did kind of get to me for a second. I think that's a plus and a minus because it was a lot for me to handle, but also it was really accurate rep, which I appreciated. I loved everything about this book though. It's intense, it's twisty, it's thrilling, it's fast-paced. All the characters were very easy to differentiate and to feel sympathy for. The ending was perfect. Just everything about it. I love a good for her book. And this one, I haven't heard anyone else talk about, so y'all got to pick it up. Next up, if it is still cold for you, if you are buried in snow because that damn groundhog lied to us, then I would recommend picking up The Winter Monster, or Our Winter Monster by Dennis Mahoney. This is a little bit of a creature feature, but I think it reads like a thriller. Just the atmosphere of it is very snowy, isolated. The feeling of it is very like fast-paced thrilling. You're putting together the pieces of this mystery. So although it is a horror book, I do think it reads much like a thriller, and I would recommend it for any thriller lover, especially if you like an element of psychological thrill. You're gonna love this book. It's about a couple, and they're going on this snowy getaway to a cabin to try to reconnect because they've had some traumas and upsetting things that have gotten in the way of their connection. Along the way, they're driving in a blizzard, and they end up getting in this horrible accident and being attacked by something, some snowy force that they cannot identify, some winter monster. Filled with psychological horror, you get into the trauma of their relationship. It's very intense. There are some great like gory kill scenes in this book, but ultimately we are just trying to figure out what is this monster and why is it attacking them. And the meaning behind it at the end when you find out what it is, this book is perfect. This book is perfect. Such an easy 5-star. Why is no one else talking about it? Why is no one else recommending it? It just came out. Please go read it. Next up, we have another British thriller, and that is No One Saw a Thing by Andrea Mara. This is a kidnapping thriller. If you like a missing child, this is for you because we are following a mother who gets on the tube, on the train with her 2 little children, but the doors close before she makes it on. So just her 2 little daughters get on the train. She's freaking out, clearly. She's separated from her daughters. She goes to find one of the like tube personnel, metro people, I don't know. And she's like, hey, you gotta grab my daughters. And they're like, don't worry, ma'am, this happens. We're gonna hold the daughter at the next stop. And she's like, daughter? Singular? One little girl? No, there was 2. And everyone around her is like, no. There was just one. So thus ensues the frantic search for the missing daughter. What happened to her in the 30 seconds between train stops? You gotta find out. It is very thrilling. I also read this one in just a couple sittings. It's so fast-paced. You're trying to look at all the suspects and see who has motive to take this little girl, or was it a random stranger? All throughout the book, you're like counting down the hours. Like, I love that each chapter starts with a little timestamp, so it really feels like it's a race against the clock to find this little girl. If you liked Little Secrets by Jennifer Hillier or The Housewarming by S.C. Lines, 2 also really solid kidnapping books, then you will love No One Saw a Thing. Next Next up, this is another one that's good to read in the winter or spring. It just fits the atmosphere. It's also another very rich people drama, scandalous domestic thriller, if you're down with that. That is The Lion Club by Annie Ward, and I never talk about this one. I don't know why. It was such an easy 5-star. Basically, one morning, 2 bodies are carried out of this elite school, and everyone is a suspect. Over the course of the book, we're trying to figure out who are these 2 bodies, who died, and what led to their deaths. We are following multiple people in the community, mostly these like annoying rich people with all this drama and all of these lies that they're upholding about their fake plastic lives. There's a lot of rivalry. There's a lot of like haves versus have-nots in the community. It was just juicy from the first page and I could not put it down. The tagline is they will stop at nothing to get what they want. And that is exactly what this book feels like. But it actually ends up going a little bit darker than I thought it would, which was a really pleasant surprise. The killer reveal and all of the twists caught me so off guard. 5-star, and I never hear anyone mention it, except for Matt the page turner. Shout out Matt, love you, my king. I believe he also sent me this book. You're the best. The last couple underrated thriller recs I have for you here were favorites of mine from last year, but I don't believe that I talked about either of these in my best of the year video. They just like weren't the top of the top of the top, but they are super solid thriller recs that I feel like no one talks about, so I wanted to recommend them here for you guys. First up, we have Unmissing by Minka Kent, and this is one of the most unique and intriguing setups for a thriller that I've ever read. We are following this woman who has this perfect ideal life with her husband in this beautiful house, and he owns a restaurant and they're rich and everything is wonderful, except for when she opens the door and sees a ghost. And by a ghost, I mean her husband's first wife, who was supposed to be dead for 10 years because she was abducted and assumed dead. But apparently she's escaped and she's back. So now this dude has 2 wives and the picture perfect life is shattered. What happened to the first wife all these years ago? What are they gonna do now that she's back? Why does everyone seem sketchy and have things to hide? You will find all of it out over the course of this book. It is so riveting. It's so twisty and easy to read. It's just a fabulous ride that you will not want to put down for a second. I freaking loved it. I believe it's on KU. Highly recommend. And the last recommendation I have for you, except it's not the last recommendation, because if you know, then you know. There are 4 bonus recommendations on Patreon. Always. For every single sit-down recommendation video that I film, we got the bonus recs over on Patreon. So if you want 4 more unheard of, never talked about, underrated thriller recs, if this wasn't enough for you, you can go over on Patreon, check out the extended cut. It's available for all my tiers, and if you subscribe to the lowest tier one time for $3.99, you can literally binge all of the bonus content that I've ever made. There are so many videos over there, hours and hours and hours of content. Please go enjoy it if you wish. No pressure. A thank you. Back to the last rec. Of course, I had to recommend The Vacancy in Room 10 by Serafina Nova Glass. I actually just ordered Serafina Nova Glass's newest release, and I'm gonna put it in my next thriller vlog. I'm so freaking excited to read it. I literally cannot wait because this one was so good. Yet another easy 5-star thriller. We are following these 2 women who are tangentially connected to this dead man who turns up at an apartment complex. And this apartment complex used to be a motel. So it's kind of weird. It kind of has this quirky setup and this quirky cast of characters. As we're trying to figure out what happened to this man and how these 2 women are involved, it's so much darker and grittier than you might expect. It has this very intense intense nature to it that the whole time I was reading, I was like shocked at every turn, not only by what was happening in the plot, but just at the writing and the choices that the characters were making and the way that characters were characterized. It was like everything was such a breath of fresh air. I cannot believe more people aren't reading this thriller and rating it 5 stars, because I feel like this one should be universally loved. It's dark, it's twisty, it has great characters, a solid plot, it reads really fast. What more could you want in a thriller? That's why it's 5 stars, girl. And with that, those are gonna be all of the thriller and horror book recommendations you've probably never heard of, or hopefully you haven't. Hopefully I gave you at least a few in this video that you've never heard of and that you're excited to read and dive into without any hype or 1,000,001 people shoving it down your throat. Just little old me. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Again, if you want the bonus recs, my Patreon is always linked down below. Also linked down below is that link for Aura. Go and try it out for 14 days for free. And thank you again to Aura for sponsoring this video. If you liked this recommendation video, go ahead and give it a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And of course, don't forget to go to therapy and read a book this week. I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!